households and 30,000 families residing in Carroll County. The county has a total area of 500 square miles, 499 of which is land and 4.8 water. Carroll County's impact on improving the environment can be seen throughout all the departments and is an obvious priority of the Carroll County Board of Commissioners. So far this year, the Carroll County Transfer Station has taken in 77,000 tons of trash with an average daily rate of 280.3 tons. Not included in this year-to-date total are the many different programs that have been implemented by the county to help reduce the impact on the landfill and the environment. From January 1st to November 30th, 2022, Carroll County has recycled 87.41 tons of glass, 164.37 tons of tires, 27 tons of aluminum cans, 840 tons of scrap metal, and over 200 tons of cardboard. The impact of these efforts and the continuous environmental improvements of the various departments and of the Board of Commissioners will keep the county moving in the direction of sustainability. The Carroll County Emergency Management Agency, EMA, helped found the LEPC, which is the Local Emergency Planning Committee, and is the coordinating party for various departments. They also manage the Tier 2 data for the county and all municipalities within Carroll County. Carroll County EMA is constantly looking for state and federal grants for both public safety and support agencies. In the event of an environmental emergency, Carroll County EMA will work with all state environmental agencies as well as be a liaison between the government and the affected industry. The West Georgia Regional Local Emergency Planning Committee's Environmental Excellence Award recognizes civic, corporate, and governmental leadership that contributes to the strategy of environmental sustainability for performance and action. Acting as liaison between industry and emergency response, the LEPC is in a unique position to evaluate the dependability and trustworthiness of an environmental program. Because of that view, this award was created. It is intended to identify and commend LEPC member groups and companies within our community. The recipients of this award have gone above and beyond the mere requirements of the statutes, and by doing so have made our community a better place in which to live. The officers and members of the West Georgia Regional Local Emergency Planning Committee take great pleasure in recognizing the Carroll County Board of Commissioners by presenting them with the annual LEPC Environmental Excellence Award on this 8th day of December, 2022. And Danny Fowler with Fowler Safety LLC is the chair, Tim Padgett with Carroll County EMA is the co-chair, Alan English of the Carrollton Fire Department's treasurer, and Jody Prater with Print Pack is the secretary. And we received this beautiful award yesterday, so I wanted to present that to you before you saw it right up in the paper and let you know how exciting it is for us to get this. So at this point, I will call the meeting to order. I'll call on the clerk to do our roll call.
Chairman Morgan.
Here.
Vice Chairman McClendon.
Here.
Commissioner Chance.
Here.
Commissioner Lee.
Here.
Commissioner Fuller.
Here.
Commissioner Reynolds.
Here.
Commissioner Chambers.
Here.
At this time, we'll move into the business session, and I know as each of you are very, very excited to be coming to this meeting today. And the only thing we have is 4.1, the admin building location, and it's a consideration of a resolution to approve the location of the new county administration building and related facilities, and to authorize the chairman to take all actions necessary for issuance of a request for proposals for a construction manager at risk, site preparation, pre-construction, and other activities for the project. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Doug Shaw, our architect we chose from Jericho Design Group, for a presentation, and we'll open up the discussion to questions.
All right, so it's a pleasure to be here before you and to talk about the options and your consideration of these options. So I know I'm going to be looking at the screen behind you. It's not like I'm not looking at you, but I'm going to be looking behind you when I'm talking, so if you allow me to do that. And I know you've got it in front of you as well. All right, so this is basically an administration building update and site selection discussion. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So we basically got two things we want to talk about. What have we been doing from a programming and planning standpoint? And then we're going to look at the building elevations and site studies. So if you go ahead. So over the past several months, we have had 20 meetings with department heads as well as the tax commissioner. We have developed departmental conceptual diagrams in order to kind of quantify that from a space standpoint. And we're continuing to schedule meetings to refine everything that we're learning from all of the department heads as well as the tax commissioner. Next. We have visited and walked the county administration and the old Noonan Road sites and studied the available information, both geotechnical and in surveys. We've developed several versions of the site plan. So we've gone through 2 or 3 versions of the site plan to try to maximize the location of the building on the site. And we've met with engineering consultants to discuss the alternatives and implementation associated with the locating of the building. All right, and so we are really ready to move forward once this site selection is complete. We have, the table is basically set. All we got to do is get the approval from you guys on the correct site, and we're ready to roll. All right, so let's look at building elevations and the site studies. All right, so this first diagram is the building on College Street and what it would look like. So the orange box in the middle is the proposed building. We do have a lot of parking on both sides of the building. It does increase the amount of parking that you do have now, because if you think about what you have now, the buildings are kind of scattered all over the place, but when you consolidate it into one footprint, you're able to get more parking. We do have a drop-off on both sides, and then we've got a drive-through basically for tax commissioner's office on the north end of that floor plan, of that site plan. So if you want to think about this building, it really is kind of a 2-story building with a daylight basement. So the right side of the diagram is your 2-story side, and the other side of the diagram, the left side of the diagram, is actually 3-story. So the daylight will come in on the left side on the 3-story as well to get light into the building, into the workspaces. All right, so this is basically the same building. So I want to emphasize to you that the same building will fit on both sides and will function very similar on both sides. So you see that's it's very similar to what we just talked about. It's got the drive-through on the front, which we'll look at some traffic studies and make sure that's the right way to put place to put it. We do have a drop-off on either side, very similar. And because the grading is similar for both sites from the standpoint of how the topography works, we are going to have the same idea. We're going to have a 2-story on one side and a 3-story on the other. In other words, a 2-story building with a daylight basement. All right, so you see them together, and from a scale standpoint, you see that they both take up the site in a similar pattern. So there's really no big difference from a functionality standpoint. And if you go to the next one, so this is these are the elevations associated with what you would see. So this is College Street, and if you look at the bottom right hand, you see the view from downtown. So that's the 2-story portion of the building you would see. And if you look on the left image, that's the view from the side street there from Brown Street, and you would see a 3-story building. So on both elevations, you see that that drop off in the middle of the elevation. And you see a really handsome building that really reflects the older courthouse design and how it works. So what does that look like on the other side, Old Noonan Road? So it's very similar. So you see the bottom right, the view coming from the bypass. It would be more 2-story on that side, and then more 3-story if you're coming from downtown on Old Noonan Road towards the site. So essentially, again, the building is really the building on both sides. So the difference would be the cost of the development of the site on one site versus the other site. That's really the only thing that we're looking for your decisions today, is which site makes sense. The building is going to be a great building on both sides. All right. So from you need to talk a little bit about cost at this point. So what we're looking at from a site development cost is there is about a $3 to $4 million premium to put your building on the Old Noonan site, and that has to do with a lot of factors, a lot of imported dirt, potentially 125,000 yards from preliminary engineering studies, as well as some road improvements around there to make sure that the flow of traffic is sufficient and safe. So that is really the delta between the two sites. The site where College Street is, you will have some phasing, And in that difference between the $3 to $4 million, that phasing cost and premium of College Street is in that overall kind of difference, if you will, that delta between the two costs of the two sites. So if you did put the building at College Street, you would have to move out, get the building down, and then you could begin the construction. So the delta, again, the delta between the two takes all of these outlying factors, not just site work, into consideration. And again, both buildings can be built successfully on either site. Any questions from the board?
Did you, you're talking about the monetary portions and the difference. Did you do any traffic studies or feasibility studies at either site?
We did not do any kind of I guess, not hardcore is not the right word, but any kind of real detailed traffic studies. But we do know that on Old Noonan Road, that will increase the traffic on that road, having that building there, because that building is not there. Because you're put on College Street, if you put the building there, the traffic would increase some, but it wouldn't be like the traffic increase would be on Old Noonan Road. But we haven't done any detailed traffic studies at this point.
Have you done a detailed analysis to come up with a $3 or the $4 million difference, or is that more generic or rough estimates?
So there has been some preliminary engineering on both sites, grading plans, measurements of utilities and things like that. So in coming up with that delta, all of that was taken into consideration, and we did some due diligence in order to give you, a good number to think about.
So it'd be fair to say you spent a lot more time on just the monetary portion than necessarily the feasibility of traffic studies and that so forth. You really didn't dive into that side of it. Would that be a fair statement?
Yeah, that would be fair, because the traffic studies, there's public hearings and other kinds of stuff. You do it when you do a full-blown traffic study, and we're just not at that point yet. But I do think that, again, Old Noonan doesn't have the building. Traffic would increase there. The existing building is there. If you put your newer building there, the traffic would increase, obviously, because the size of the building is different. But it wouldn't be substantial because the same departments that are there are going back there.
But, and also to your point, one site, while there would have to be site work, you're not having to move anyone out or tear down an old building versus the other site where you have those complications.
Correct. And that is not a schedule buster, because actually to prepare the pad for the Old Noonan site is going to take a long time because we have to pull the grade up a lot. So from a schedule standpoint, they're relatively equal.
Thank you.
I got a couple of questions. I was out yesterday at College Street and so on. One of the things that I found out is that there's a sewer problem, I guess, out there, and I guess the elections office has to deal with that as it overflows into the parking lot at some points. And I'm wondering, can that be fixed, or, I mean, we wouldn't want to build a new building and have an ongoing sewer problem there on the lower level where the city sewer runs through the parking lot.
Right, so that's news to me, and we would definitely take a hard look at it. Given the age of that building, we may have like clay pipe for some of the sewer lines around that building, so there may be some collapsed pipes associated with that, but we would have to do more investigation really to answer that. But, well, the answer is no, we're not going to settle for that. We're going to fix it if it goes on the College Street site.
Yeah, and also I know we don't want to like plan for things just because of a 2-week aberration, but as far as early voting and that kind of thing, I understand there were some minor fender benders out there because of all the traffic in that parking lot and so on. Either place would have that problem. Was the parking spaces and that kind of thing, was early voting and that kind of activity kind of looked at?
I think from a design standpoint, both sites will have much safer parking lots. If you've traveled in that parking lot and pulled in and tried to rotate around, you know that is not a very efficient parking lot. Yeah. And that would be fixed on both of those. So hopefully that'll help alleviate some of the issues that were happening in early voting.
One thing, and I talked about it with some of the commissioners, but as far as tearing down the site on College Street, and I guess I just envisioned mega loads of brick and mortar and steel and all that kind of interfering with downtown activity. But then I believe it was Commissioner McClendon that mentioned about crushing the brick and the concrete and that kind of thing. Is that feasible? It seems like a very viable alternative to reduce the amount of truck traffic if we did go with that.
Absolutely. That is actually a good kind of green way to deal with the building. You know, both the concrete and the brick can be crushed and used in some other areas of the county as just base. You wouldn't necessarily use it for structural, but from some fill and things, I think that's a real good suggestion and a real good thing to do.
I'd like to cover two things. I don't mean to ask too many questions here, but a couple of things are on my mind. So I did briefly talk with Public Works, and they were mentioning as far as, you know, moving the dirt, grading and all that, no problem. They indicated that they don't know if they have enough dirt, so there may be some dirt that needs to be purchased or whatever for that site. But the main thing they don't know about is the cost of the bypass site, the old Noonan Road site, as far as setting the pylons, if that's the right terminology, that are required, and building that 30-foot retaining wall. Do you have, are these costs that you gave us, are they reflective of actually setting those pylons, building that retainer wall, and all things that could be encountered there?
Yeah, there is a premium in there for the foundation system. Because we're filling the site, it's not what we call residual soil. It will not have the bearing capacity right away. We are going to have to go with what we call a modified proctor of bringing up the site. Instead of 8-inch lifts, you may be doing 4-inch lifts when you're bringing up the dirt. And at the same time, the structural engineer has already indicated we would have to definitely do some structural modifications to the structural system in order to be on that site, because it is a fill site.
So how much of a wag is the estimate, I guess, in my mind? I mean, is it $4 million or is it 8, or, I mean, what could we get into out there? That's just a big question in my mind.
Well, you know, we haven't done the detailed engineering on it, and construction costs are rolling up fast. It could be more than $4 million. I'm not going to say it's, you know, just going to be $4 million. It could be more, depending on how the dirt comes in, how the compaction works, how the foundations are actually being able to be designed. So I feel like that roughly $4 million is a medium ground, and I would love to see us go underneath it, but it could go over that as well. And I'd hate to come back to you with that news, but there is a potential there.
Okay. On the other side, if we go with College Street, how precise are the estimates for actually setting up and moving staff to a temporary location and then moving them from there into the new building once that's complete? Did we allow enough for that? Because that would be quite a complicated move.
Yeah, there is a number in the budget that was developed for that. I don't know it off the top of my head, but I think it was like $1 million, something like that.
Okay. I have no
That
idea.
include the demolition, the movement, and the move back.
You're fairly comfortable with that?
I am. I don't think the only complication of moving staff is really IT issues. That is the number one thing. It's not furniture and people typically. It's making sure your systems get up and running. So that's the only complicated piece of moving people back and forth typically. To make sure you got the right fiber in there, you got the right backbone, you've got the right computer infrastructure.
You estimated the lamps on College Street site work, that could increase also, right? start laying back layers and you find sewer that's gonna have to be replaced. And no telling what else you might find.
Well, that's new information, that,
But all I'm asking, that could increase the risk.
yeah, it could increase. It could increase.
But there's a lot of layers under there that you don't know what's there.
Yeah, sometimes what we like in the industry, we got a GOK factor on some of these things when you tear down a building, a God only knows factor. So there may be a little bit of that sitting at a College Street.
And now, this may be a dumb question, it may be more for our attorneys. So today, we're just deciding on the site, not with any affiliated budget along with that. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay.
Maybe not saying is that, is this budget's included with this or what?
But after this proposed resolution that you have before you, you go to the RFP for the construction manager at risk, and that's when you be setting your, have a more realistic total budget. So that's, we'd start that process next. So this does not have the total budget number today. It's just the site selection and the preliminary activities.
But it's as accurate of a guess as we can make at this point.
Right, right.
Okay.
So yes, I know we kind of did things a little backwards. Most people have the site, and they go and hire the construction company, and then they figure out what they can and can't do with the building. We did it a little bit differently in the fact that this is gonna be something that's gonna be a long term, and I'm thinking 50 years. Especially if we see how the county does currently keep buildings forever and ever, way past their prime. But I really wanna make sure we chose what was best for the citizens, not necessarily, oh, this is the only piece of property, so we're gonna make it work. I want to make sure we provide for the employees and the citizens. So it is a little bit of a backwards way we've done it, but I do think it's brought the best out to see what does the county have to currently offer and what can we build and do for the best for our citizens. So the next step would be is that we will put a committee together like I've done before, probably some of the same ones that would be in the building, and they would interview the CM at risk and then bring back to us their recommendation, and we would vote on that person. And then the same thing with the future construction company. We'd put a committee together, they'd interview after the RFPs went out and bring us back a recommendation. So this is just the first of steps, but at least deciding where we want to go, because I think Tommy, you and George can both say we have been doing this for a long time, because nobody ever could decide on what we even wanted to bring. So the fact that the 7 of us have narrowed down several pieces of property and gotten to these 2 is a major accomplishment that I have to commend the 7 of us for doing. So I did want to address with you too. We've talked about wetland credits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would be a part of the Old Noonan Road site. Part of it is, there's like a 30-foot difference between the floor level of the courthouse and the bottom of the hill, if you will. And to work with that, we are going to have to move dirt into that wetland so that we're not spending money on other kind of expensive infrastructure. So wetland credits is going to be a part of the Old Noonan Road site.
So that was part of the expense. I think you said about $4 million approximately, give or take, between College Street and Old Noonan Road.
Correct.
Based on the dirt, based on wetland credits, which to me seems a little, since we just partnered with TPL to buy land to save parts of the Chattahoochee, we're gonna then turn around and buy wetlands. It seems a little, I do have a slight problem with that. I know we can't not buy the wetlands, but I do have a concern that we're taking away from wetlands.
Since we're close to the wetlands, will we have to engage EPA or anybody like that?
We are going to be working with all the environmental folks basically to make this happen.
Okay, is there anything they can do to stand in our way? If we decide on that
I don't.
side?
You know what? I think that the engineer is a really good engineer and has a good rapport with the folks that he needs to get permits from. So I'm not seeing that as a big barrier at this point.
So you don't.
From a
Would we have to
process standpoint.
Would we have to deal with any any kind of agency for any type of removal of potential things in the old building at the College Street site?
You know, I don't think so. I can't imagine anything that wouldn't have already shown itself. But I don't think so. Nothing unusual.
And then, will you refer back to the timeline, when you were talking about site work on College Street versus the site work on Old Newnan? What would be the timeline, kind of like in taking this building down versus building the dirt up over here? What kind of time frame are we looking at?
So to me, there may be more time on the Old Newnan Road site. It really depends on who's doing the dirt work and can they find the dirt. There's probably 4 months of demolition and getting that site prepped on College Street, and it may be up to 9 months depending on can we move the dirt quickly and do we have the dirt available on Old Newnan Road. So there could be a sway there. It's just hard to predict at this point.
My understanding, the dirt's available right across the bypass instead of waiting on us.
Well, that would hopefully bring that nine months down some. And again, the way we're going to have to lift this dirt up to build up the site is going to be a little bit slower than normal, just because of the layers. Yep.
Okay, you're gonna have to put down piers at the site out on the road, is that correct?
Yeah, structural. Yep.
Okay,
And we've included.
I call it French drain, what's the real name for it? The underwater reservoir, well, you know what I'm talking about, it's like a big French drain.
We're going to have aggregate piers, if that's what you're looking at, more than likely.
Underneath,
Yeah.
ponds underneath, okay, so we'll have, we won't have to deal with that at the College Street site.
No, the geotechnical came back pretty favorable there. The geotechnical report.
Okay. And I've got, these may sound simple. Detention pond. Yeah, detention pond.
Oh, detention pond. Yeah.
What, and this may sound simplistic, but I had somebody ask me that, what is the height of this building? How tall is it going to be?
So it depends on if you want to look back at the elevation, it depends what part of the building you're talking about. So if you're just talking about maybe to the start of the roof on the 2-story side, it's probably in the 30-foot range. And then if you go to the 3-story side, the starting of the roof, at about 16 feet at the most. So you're probably at 46 at that point. Or, I haven't determined, but it may be just 15, 15, and 15 more than likely. That's a very conservative, so maybe 45 feet.
How high is the roof? What's the pitch on the roof?
Right now we're looking at about a 5 and 12.
5 and 12?
Mm-hmm. Not a really high pitch because you don't want to buy more roof than you need, frankly, but you do want it to be aesthetically pleasing.
You talking about 12 feet, 14 feet, with 5 and 12 on top of the 20 or 30? From the pitch, from the roof line, carnage, carnage line on top of the roof, so you need to do that.
And you can see from these renderings, we don't have a really high-pitched roof. Again, we're trying not to buy more roof than we need. But I do think it's aesthetically, the elevations do look good.
You got about 42, 45 feet, I think, from ground to peak.
That sounds reasonable.
The parking spots, I mean, where that you told us, but I forgot.
So they're roughly the same on both sites. We're looking roughly at 270 to 280 square parking spots. What we're trying to do is divide them evenly between sides of the building, because again, we've got an entry on the 2-story side and an entry on the 3-story side, which will be connected internally with elevators. But we've talked with the tax commissioner, and a lot of their day-to-day traffic will be on this lower side, if you will, and the Board of Commissioners traffic typically will be, and permitting will be on the upper side. So, so that's the scheme at this point. Mm-hmm.
That's mostly concrete and steel in there. There's a lot more steel in that building than there is in the old one. So can we can recycle that steel, can't we?
Yeah, there's all kinds of ways. I mean, copper wire. I mean, good grief. There's all kinds of things to recycle in these buildings, if that's the pleasure of the board, for sure.
Maybe we'll win the award again next year.
What's that?
Maybe we'll win the same award again next year for being environmentally friendly.
This is the award I'm
I
talking
know.
about right here. The wetland at the other side. Get the EPA involved. We're fixing to stick them right in our front yard. And I have a real problem. I don't, the other side, if we see anything up, like Commissioner Lee said, if we're gonna run into anything over here at this other side that's gonna potentially get one of these federal agencies involved in what we're doing. Yes, sir.
Well, I don't see any EPA issues or anything like that. No, obviously there's no wetlands out there. None of those type of things that are obvious at this point. I think if we run into anything on College Street, it's like we may have to like improve the sewer system to another connection or something like that. Yeah, we will have to make sure that the building is clean before we're taking it down. Yeah.
Did you get a number on that?
Yeah, that's in the analysis.
Is it a pull out air number or is it a fixed number?
Well, it's an estimate at this point. We haven't got any kind of we didn't put anybody in there and get a number from them, but based upon experience. Yeah. Again, we're working with big round numbers right now, and when we get into detailed design and planning, we will be able to answer these questions a lot better. And then when we get the SIM on board, like the chairman said, obviously he's going to have numbers to help us deal with the costs as well.
All I'm saying is that number could increase also. That is number.
I'm not ever going to tell you that a number can't increase. This construction period is just too volatile, and it's just the way things are. Inflation is inflation right now. We've done our best to give you numbers to make a decision on, though. That's kind of where we are.
Regardless of the site, you can tweak and finesse a little bit this drive-through so that it won't impede traffic and be sufficient and all that. I mean, it might.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if that's me causing that. Absolutely. So again, we're in kind of preliminary diagramming, and we would definitely do the studies of queuing associated with it to make sure that we don't impede people getting in and out of either site.
There's no further questions at this moment. I'll look for a motion in a second.
I'll make a motion to build at the College Street site.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to build at the College Street site. I'll ask again if there's any further questions or any other discussions.
I'd like to make a few comments about the two sites. First, I want to say I'm very excited just about building a building. We've all been looking for this for a very long time, so it's very exciting, I think, for everybody on this board. I know I'm very excited no matter where it goes. But I think trying to look at what is most advantageous, not only for my district, but looking at Carroll County as a whole. I think College Street has served very well for the citizens of the current services that we offer there through the years, but it is an extremely busy location. And to add in additional offices and so forth, I do worry about that much traffic, all being surrounded just by single lane streets around the building there on College Street. As far as, and of course we're going to have to tear down the building, there's going to be costs there, and we're not going into all the costs, but I think it's not that I don't believe the numbers, because I think you all have done your due diligence, but I think there's been enough discussion today to see that the numbers can go up and down on either side. I haven't seen enough evidence to say one side is just going to cost us $4 million more. The old Noonan Road site is located very close to the 4-lane bypass. I think that's going to make traffic as our community continues to grow, as the city of Carrollton continues to grow. You're going to see a lot more traffic here in downtown, and I think we need to be thinking about what does that growth look like for everybody within the community to come to this facility. The other thing is, if you look at the area in the old Noonan Road area, to me that's a hub over there. You've got 911, the Ag Center, Magistrate Court building, Sheriff's Department, Health Department, Recreation, Public Works, the prison, driver services. You have more of a destination, if you will, in that corridor, in my opinion. But for me, the moving logistics of having to move the employees, that's a lot of employees to have to move. We're going to have to put money into another area, as you say, IT and other things to get them up and going and moving. I understand we're going to hire a company to build this, but a lot of that I feel like would be on the backs of our current employees. I just don't see how we've got the staff to sit and move that many employees into another building, take on all the skeletons that will come out of the closet by making that operate for a certain amount of time, and then asking them to move and then go into another facility, and just, you know, the stress on the employees. Maybe there's some that'll have stress, maybe there's some that's not. That's a big deal to move individuals for a short period of time and then move them again. So all those different considerations, I'm going to be happy at either location, but in doing the due diligence, I just can't be scared away from knowing that we've looked at the monetary portion, but we haven't looked at deep analysis of traffic studies and a lot of different things that also have a value as well. So to me, in trying to service the community, I just really feel like the old Noonan location is the best location. But as always, I say I respect my fellow commissioners wherever the vote moves.
I think we all try to be frugal, and this isn't easy. I mean, each site has their pros and cons, and any vote I make, I just want to say it will be based on primarily frugality and any dubiousness of the future. So, and I think each of them have their own pros and cons, and I hope we make the best decision.
Well, if there's no further discussion, I will go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor of building the new county admin building on College Street, please raise your hands. Any opposed?
I have 5 in favor of College Street and 2 opposed.
At this time, there's no further business, so I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.